Hardin County, it's time we have a conversation about Simon Kenton. Early voting's already happened. The Board of DD levy is on the ballot, and people are asking me questions. Do you know anything about it? What's going on with it? We're concerned that it's going to go by the wayside, kind of like Hardin Hills did. What do we need to know? And I'm here. I want to share with you what I've been able to find out. I reached out to Kara Brown, the director down there, and was like, hey, can we talk? Can I find out a little bit about the structure of the your program, and are we going to lose it? They were more than gracious. We've spent over 5 hours talking and getting the facts. They were completely open and transparent with their budget, what they've done, how the methodology that they use to make their decisions, and how they plan out the year, because as costs go up, the costs go up, but their income is staying pretty level. And so how do they handle that? What cost down options have they done? It's been an amazing experience just to meet with somebody who really has the Board of DD and the Simon Kenton crew have just really thought through every step of this process, their grant process. I mean, it's amazing what they've been able to do with the grants, and I'm going to report about that in another video. And so I just want to share with you as quickly as I can, because it's a ton of information, kind of what we're looking at. So let's start right off of the bat on what is the structure. Okay, legally, the public school system has to educate every student in their school district. That includes the DD students. So the responsibility of education falls on the Kenton schools, or whatever your school district is, to educate, right? So the money from the state that comes down goes to the Board of DD. They use that money to help fund part of the education of those DD students. That is only the Simon Kenton portion of what they do. They have their other legal responsibilities. The Board of DD over here, which is kind of the outside of school, the life skills, zero to death kind of skill, therapies and resources. That's what the Board of DD is legally responsible for. They graciously run a school of DD called Simon Kenton here in Hardin County. So when we talk about losing Simon Kenton, that's really a gift that the Board of DD is giving us, and a burden that they're taking off the public school system. So when you want to talk about brass tacks, it's the responsibility and financial burden of our public school system to educate these students. The Board of DD takes that on. They absorb the deficit, because there's always a deficit in this type of education that they want to, because I think the heart of our community, for the DD community, is that we want the best care, and we want to have pride in how we care for these students. And so they took this on, they developed the school, and they have a great reputation in our community. I'm proud of the Simon Kenton preschool, and the education that they provide, I think, is top notch. And no facility is perfect, but they really steward their jobs very well, and I think that's something they should be proud of. So anyway, so the legal responsibility is in the school system. The Board of DD takes it on, created this school, this DD school, that's kind of an offset of the public school. It's its own special designation, and they've been running it for all these years. The problem with that is that the costs are going up and up and up, right? We all feel that in our own personal lives, and their funding stays pretty stagnant, right? So you kind of have this sort of thing, and their funding's going down here. They had a levy come on in 23, and that does help, but it's not necessarily enough. And so it's this whole thing of saying, well, the Board of DD has to provide legally, right? So this is so the Board of DD, what is their job? Is to provide social services for the DD community. I mean, therapies, resources, they do Medicare, Medicaid, help, they help with the billings, equipment costs, the 24-hour care, resources, they have houses, they have the group homes, there's all kinds of things that they do outside of school, right? That money that they need for that is in jeopardy because of this extra thing that they're doing with the Simon Kenton School. So in order for them to maintain their program that they're responsible for, they can't do that and have the school. So if you let the school go and you give it back to the public school system, then they can reallocate that money over to kind of that life skills area for the DD community. There will always be education available for this community. That part of it's not going away. It may change management hands, it may change funding, where the funding comes from. You may have to change locations, like if it's not held here in the local school, the Simon Kenton School, you may have to now take your kids over to USV or out of county to a different facility. So, are things going to change for Simon Kenton? Yeah, it's kind of inevitable, right? They're in the effort to preserve what they have thus far, right? The reputation that they have, the programs that they've put together, and the normalcy for what the kids know is the levy, right? So they're asking for a $500,000 levy, which is going to give them $444,000 a year, which they're going to save a portion of that up front to say, as rising costs go up, they save here, and then they can use their savings once inflation goes at the end of that 7 years. You can reallocate it there and maintain their budget. So they're very strict on their budget. If they're not going to, they need to hire 2 new people, one for early intervention, one for their regular SSAs, because the caseload has just gone up and it's going to continue to go up as these COVID babies kind of get into the system. And they're waiting, right? They're going to wait until January because it's not in the budget. Come January, they will be in their budget. They can hire the 2 new people. And but if they say this is how they're going to spend their money and this is what their budget is, they're going to make the sacrifices that they need to get through what they're doing. And I think that's such a level of integrity, and it gives confidence, at least to me, that when my tax money goes to this facility, that they're using it exactly the way that they said they were, and they're very transparent and good stewards of their finances. So if that's the only thing that you take away, is that they are using your tax dollars to the best of their ability and they're open about it, let that be the testimony on their behalf, because I think that makes a big deal to me. And they have the reputation that has been proven over the years, and that means a lot too. If so let's say the levy doesn't pass and they go, okay, we can't do this life care work for the community, we need to move Simon Kenton School to somewhere else, manage somewhere else, so that we can do our job. That means it's going to go back to the public school system. The public school system is then the school board is going to have to say, okay, how are we going to fund this, right? Because now they're going to be stuck with the deficit that the same deficit that Simon Kenton is, and they're going to have a couple options. So there's one other player. So we have Simon Kenton, the Board of DD, and Simon Kenton. We have the public school board, and now we have the ESC, which is the Education Services Center, and Simon Kenton uses them. They're kind of a management group. They have, I think, 16 districts in them, and you can have a contract with this group, and they will help provide staffing, teachers, resources, those kinds of things, and you don't have to constantly be changing your contract. And they have bigger pools of applications, and it's a COG, it's a council of government is what it is. And so that's the ESC. So Simon Kenton uses people from them currently, and they have a great relationship. And ideally, to make it the easiest, if you're the public school board, you're going to say, okay, we don't have the time and resources or the knowledge to run this program. So they can either go back to Simon Kenton and say, look, we want you to run it, or the board of DD, we want you to run Simon Kenton, and they can work out a deal that way. The school board can say, well, we're going to go to the ESC, and we're going to pay the ESC to run the Simon Kenton program. And so that would be an option. They, if we get to that point, they're going to have to negotiate kind of between the three of them what that looks like and how that's going to play out. Is it going to be more expensive to go through the ESC than the board of DD? I don't know. That's something that's going to have to be looked at. I do know that so the Simon Kenton building and the Harco building were both built solely from the DD fundraising, right? So they built and they maintained those buildings. They don't own them. The commissioners own the buildings because the board is not legally allowed to own the buildings, which that's kind of across the board. That's kind of why the commissioners, have all this property, is because they're the legal entity that's allowed to hold it. So, so the buildings are the board of DDs, and their stance is that whoever decides to take over Simon Kenton, they can use the building. They have it there. They've maintained it well. It has, all the it's set ups, for this school. So whether the public school does it or the ESC comes in, it's their heart to donate their building and their monies to housing this facility. So we could have this whole changeover, but the students don't know any different because the building's the same, the teachers are the same, all the people are the same. And I think that ultimately is the goal, is to give the students the normalcy that they have through this process, and to continue to provide them with this excellent education, right? So that's the goal. And we have those three players, and what that's ultimately going to end up, we don't know. Let's talk about the levy, because that's what this also is all about, right? Do they really need more money? Why are they asking? If you look at your property tax, you see the board of DD on there several times, and you go, oh, they got all this money. It's a little bit of a misnomer, because there's two continuous levies from the late 70s, early 80s, and those are what you call outside millage. Outside millage means that it's the same dollar amount. So if it was $100,000 in 1980, it's $100,000 today, and everybody knows that's not the same amount of money, over a 40-year time span. So it's on the outside millage. Inside millage is where, when your property tax go up, that millage also goes up. So it keeps track with inflation and property values. Okay, we don't have those. A lot of our levies are outside millage, which is just staying the same. You can renew levies, you can replace levies, and get them up to date on property values, but it's not always effective, and it's kind of confusing. And you get to a point where the inflation is so high and the costs have gone up so far that you're just never going to get it with an old levy. You're going to have to ask for new money, and that's where we are right now. So some of it, so when you see those line items, the millage is adjusted down so that the price stays the same. And so, it's a little bit of a confusing point on how much they're actually getting, right, compared to how many levies that they have. So that's one of the big issues. The other issue is that they were supposed to have new money back in 2020, right? Harco ended up, the federal said that Harco had to be privatized, so that was a big chunk of money that came out. They did where they are sharing, kind of like a regionalization where they're sharing directors, they're sharing treasurers with Logan County and different people, kind of using that ESC. That brings costs down, and so they've been able to extend kind of their pool of money for that additional 5 years. And so we're kind of at the breaking point. So the levy that's on today on the ballot is a $500,000. That's $1.50 per $100,000 of your property value. So you're looking at, most people are probably looking at $3 a month, $18 a year, and that is going to give them the wiggle room that they need to keep, to stay with what they're doing right now with the life skills, and to maintain the Simon Kenton School the way that it is. That's going to last 7 years. They had gone to the commissioners. The commissioners didn't like what they had in their levy, so they asked them to make the levy as small as possible. And so they went back, they brought it all the way down to a $500,000 so that it only lasts 7 years before that budget kind of times out. So it still will provide adequate services in the standard of care that they continue to have. And so so that's kind of the structure, that's kind of the issues, the levy that they have right now. I'll go ahead and just talk real quick about the grants that they have. They are excellent at going after grant money, and they've been able to get, I think it was like $350,000 over these last couple years in grant money. And so you can kind of have this perception that, oh, they've got a lot of money, because they redid their playground. They've got these new sensory trailers that can be used all over the county. They are putting in changing tables, different places through the county. They had a summer program that was an excellent resource over these past 3 years. They must have tons and tons of money. Well, that was just grant money, and they sat down and they showed me the money that they got, how they used it, and how the things that they bought with that grant money will last over the next 5 to 10 years, if not longer, to say that, that's a cost down way when you update your computers, or you get specialized computer systems, or those trailers, right, that can be used by everybody in the county. That's resources that you wouldn't have had before that make your care and your job easier in the long run. So I feel like they've done an excellent job of picking projects that will have a high return on them. Oh, they worked with the YMCA with their safety schools, so that the Y now has safety school equipment that they can do down there. And so just really trying to get things out to the community. But that money's all gone, right? So, and you know how grant money is, it's always very pigeonholed in what you can use it for. So that's all gone. So those programs are going to go away, which is sad, because I know the kids really enjoyed the summer program. And it paid teachers from the school system, they were able to come and work through the summer, make some extra cash, and that, that's always good for the economy to keep things rolling. And it provided some care for these kids and continued education. So it's sad to see that program go for multiple of reasons, but that's how the grant money goes. So that's a little bit of what. Well, let me tell you one more thing, because here's how does this connect to the commissioners, and how does the commissioners have power over Simon Kenton or over the board of DD? There's very little. Well, I don't know if it's little. We already talked about the one where they own the property there and are responsible to maintain it. They did replace the chillers down there this year, which out of ARPA money, which was a huge benefit to Simon Kenton. But other than that, Simon Kenton does their own maintenance of their buildings. And so, you know, just being business, building owners is one thing. The other thing is they have to approve the levy, right? So when the board of DD came, and they had several conversations back and forth, you know, not all of them were, I would say, super friendly conversations, but they do approve the levy of, you know, if it gets on the ballot or not. So that's kind of a big deal when you're talking about, you know, being able to keep a program or having to move a program somewhere else. And they also appoint 5 of the 7 board members to the board of DD. So that's a huge influence, you know, kind of extended influence on the board of DD. My feeling is that, you know, if you've appointed people to the board of DD and then that board comes to you and says, hey, we need a levy, we think this is the best way to serve our community, that, you know, if you trust the people you've appointed, then you should say, absolutely, let's put the levy on, let's put it out to the vote so that the people can decide, and you know, at least be open to those conversations. So those are just really the 3 ways that the commissioners influence the board of DD. Other than that, they don't have any say in their budget, how they spend their money, how they run their program. You know, they're very independent in that respect. And so that's kind of how it ties in. You know, kind of the accusation was, you know, are the commissioners going to get rid of Simon Kenton? And in a sense, yes, they can, because they can refuse, you know, any personal funding through the general fund, or any, you know, additional monies that they would have access to, and just being able to say no on a levy essentially will, you know, get rid of that program. It won't get rid of the program, it will move the program over to the public sector, so that the school board, the school districts take on that responsibility. So I hope this helps. There's a ton more information that I could share. If you have questions, or if I've made something confusing, reach out to me. Absolutely. I will address your questions, share what additional things I can, and we will continue. But always dig in and ask your questions of your public offices, because that's what we're called to do. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you guys have a great day. See you later.